All right, all right. Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Happy Sabbath. We are Jerusalem Ministry. Brother Pella, and we have Brother Anayan on here. We say, he's be here with us. I'm gonna just jump straight right into it, bro. I'm just get straight right into it. So, all right. So now the Ebionites Nazarenes, the Ebionites Nazarenes. So we're talking about the Ebionites and their flight to Pella, and like them making this voyage, them making this flight to Pella, the Ebionites Nazarenes. Did the early church flee to Pella? Why Pella? So these are a couple of things we're going to be answering going into on this seminar, on this lesson. So why did they go to Pella? First, we know everything was taking place at the Qumran Caves. The Qumran Caves around 68 AD, 68 AD or CE, depending on who, want to be able to express AD or CE. But historically, at 68 AD or CE, there was the Qumran Caves got invaded by the Romans, okay? And then from people there, some people died there, and some people fled, and they went to other caves like the Masada, and from Masada caves they went down to matter of fact, let me turn my screen on real quick. Turn. You can see me still? You can see me and you can still see the screen?
Yeah.
All right, so they went from the Qumran Cave, that's where head base was at, the headquarters was at. When the Romans came there, they had to hide the scrolls, and some of them left, and some of them stayed and died. A lot of them left and went to Masada. That's why we have scrolls found at Masada. All right, then from Masada, they went from Masada. The Romans came to Masada at 73 AD, and then from there, you had people relocate to Pella. They went into Pella, and there's caves over there in Pella that archaeologists has found. But it's caves over there, and then from Pella, they just went throughout Asia Minor. They went through Syria. They went through Cyprus. They went to the Transjordan area, specifically to the Transjordan area, which branched them out to further out to Syria, to Iraq, and they even went to North Africa. It was already communities in Egypt. So when they had to take this flight to Pella, this flight out of Jerusalem, a lot of them went into Egypt. Okay, some of them went into Egypt. Egypt actually became like the next hub eventually outside of Pella. You know, Pella was a hub there also. We're gonna talk about these things and where did they get. They also went to Rome. Okay, they had to, even though eventually they went up after 70 AD. Some of them actually relocated to Rome because it was a refuge, it was a community in Rome that was established by Peter. All right, so now we're gonna talk about this. Why is it important to understand this? We in some times right now where history repeats itself, and the church, the community, the Messianic Jewish community, these Jews, all right, these Messianic Hebrews, they had to relocate themselves from the city. So wherever people at in today's society, if you just equate wherever you at to the Ebionites and Nazarenes and them having to leave the city, is it time for people to leave the city? Because the Nazarenes, they understood that it was time to leave the city after particular things was taking place. And we're going to talk about certain things that took place that led them to leaving the city, okay, and relocating, taking that flight to Pella. Now, it's not enough archaeology out there about a mass movement into Pella, but archaeologists, they still searching for things within Pella. But it is a second century Byzantine church that's there, and it has Jewish Christian origin there also, but we're gonna get into this information. Even if they Pella was something that was created by the the church fathers, even if that is true. But I don't think that's true, because you have the Ebionites themselves telling them and keeping stories that they had to take flight out of there. And what everything comes back to is that they went to the Transjordan area. They went to a place called Perea, to a place called Pella, and settled there. All right. So now let's just get into it. All right, so let's do this. Hold on. Let me exit out of this. All right, so we're gonna check this out. We're gonna go to the book of Matthew real quick. We're gonna go to the Greco-Roman Matthew, because this information is stemming from Jewish Christian sources. This information is stemming from Jewish Christian tradition that was passed down, that was told. And we're going to go into some of that tradition that was passed down, that was told in some of the Jewish Christian sources also. But we also is going to go into the Greco-Roman sources, because they actually, they're stemming their information from the Jewish Christian source. All right. So we're going to check out, let's go to Matthew real quick. So we're going to check out this version of Matthew. Let's go to Matthew chapter 4. All right. So why Pella? Why Pella? Brother Nine, can you read verse 23? We in Matthew chapter 4, verse 23 to 25 for me.
Yeah. And Jesus went about all Galilee, teaching in their synagogues and preaching the gospel of the kingdom, and healing all manner of sickness and all manner of disease among the people. And his fame went throughout all Syria, and they brought unto him all sick people that were taken with divers diseases and torments, and those which were possessed with devils, and those which were lunatic, and those that had the palsy, and he healed them. And there followed him great multitudes of people from Galilee and from Decapolis, and from Jerusalem, and from Judea, and from beyond Jordan.
So you got people that's following him according to the Greco-Roman gospel, which is stemming this and some of this information, a lot of this information, well, the basics of this information is stemming from Jewish Christian origin, tradition, and gospels. All right. So according to this version of Matthew, you got people following him of great multitudes from Galilee, which is the areas where he's from, and then also from Decapolis. Decapolis I think it's like 7 or 9 cities that make up Decapolis. All right, and Pella is one of those cities. And then it's saying from Jerusalem and from Judea and from beyond the Jordan. From beyond the Jordan, that's the Transjordan area. You're going into places like you're going into what we know today as you're going to these certain areas over there to what we know today, which is like Pella. You're going into these areas. You that's beyond the Jordan. All right, so he is so according to this, we have what you would say we have followers. Okay, you got or people who believe, you got believers. Okay, you got people in the faith, people that's following these Jewish Christians, even outside of Jerusalem. All right, in these areas. So it's already what you would call refugee places where people can go to if things actually take place, if they have to flee Jerusalem. All right, so now let's go to Mark. We're gonna go to Mark. We're gonna go to this Greco-Roman Mark. All right, so let's go to we're in Mark chapter 5, verse 20. Can you read that for me, bro?
Mm-hmm. And he departed and began to publish in Decapolis how great things Yeshua had done for him, and all men did marvel.
So you got somebody going to publish, a man that that was possessed. I think he's going to that the Messiah had healed. He's going to go and publish the things that he saw, the things that he witnessed. He's publishing these things. So he's not just speaking of these things. He's publishing these things. He's making these things and he's putting these things in sort of a formal type of a formal way of putting it together, which is publishing, which is it can be writing, it can be just it can be in a form of storytelling, but in a formal way of doing it, in a publishing way of doing it. So this is happening right now. This is happening. All right. This is happening. Matter of fact, let me look at this word in the Greek real quick. So it is proclaim. Okay, it say proclaim in the Greek. It's Greek 2784. Just dealing with as public here, especially divine truth, the gospel, preach, proclaim, publish. So he started spreading this message, putting this message out there in Decapolis. So it's people in Decapolis, and he's doing it he's doing it in a certain way that he's gaining followers because he's publishing it in Decapolis how great things Jesus had done for him, and all men did marvel. So he's going there, and people is like, wow, this is interesting. So it's a safe haven set up there. It's a refuge. It's refuge being. You think that's not a refuge that they can't go to? This is somebody who Yeshaya helped, and this man witnessed these things. He witnessed these things. All right. He said, go. The Messiah said, go home, according to this Greco-Roman mark. He said, this guy Yeshaya quoting, go home to thy friends and tell them how great things the Lord have done for thee and had compassion on thee. And he departed. And he began to publish these things in Decapolis. Like I said, it's like 7 to 9 cities that make up Decapolis, and Pella is actually one of those cities. Okay, that's in Decapolis. So now you got this going on. So it's definitely a refuge place. It's something that's refuge there. They can go there. They have people there that witness the Messiah doing things there. They got followers there. All right. Let's go to we're gonna go to Mark chapter 7. And Brother Knight, can you read verse 31 for me, bro? Verse 31.
Yeah. And again, departing from the coast of Tyre and Sidon, he came unto the Sea of Galilee through the midst of the coast of Decapolis.
Through the midst of the coast of Decapolis. So they're actually they're around these areas, because these areas are not too far from Galilee. Okay, going to the Transjordan area. I think really the only thing that's really kind of separating them, from my understanding, is like the Dead Sea and like certain seas is only separating them. Nothing is really separating them that much besides water. So they're going to these places. And then people coming to them from these places. People coming to the Messiah from these places also, and they're going to these places too. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna let me get out of here. Let's go to. Matter of fact, we're gonna go back to Mark. Let me go back to Mark. We're gonna go back to Mark. Now, Julius Africanus, he mentioned, I should have pull up his excerpt, but he mentioned Julius Africanus. I want to say in the 3rd century. He's mentioning that the Messiah actually have family, that's around a certain area in Galilee that they call Nazareth. And then these people actually have is families that even go further into like places beyond the Decapolis, beyond the Jordan, of where these communities was formulating. And I'm gonna show some of this stuff within Josephus also. But so it's refugees out, it's refugee places out there, it's refugee spots for the early church in these areas. All right. So now let's go to Mark. We're gonna stay in this Greco-Roman. Why we call it Greco-Roman? Because, like I said, these records that we read in the quote unquote New Testament that we have today, this New Testament actually straight stems from the Orthodox group, which was contrary to the Jewish Christian group. All right. So, but even though we have the winners, the Orthodox group, the one that won, we have their New Testament, but we still can get a lot of information from it because their basic of their information stems from Jewish Christian gospels and sources that they use. All right, so now we in Mark chapter 13. Can you read verse? We can start at verse 1. Can you read verse 1 through 2 for me real quick?
All right. And as he went out of the temple, one of his disciples saith unto him, Master, see what manner of stones and what buildings are here. And Yeshua, or Jesus answering, said unto him, seest thou these great buildings? There shall not be left one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down.
So Yeshua, the Messiah, he prophesied of the destruction of the temple. All right. According to what we have, according to the Greco-Roman information, we're gonna go into some Jewish sources in a second. We're gonna go into the recognitions of Clement, which is we'll call it the gospel of no, it's called the Acts of the Nazarenes or the Acts of the Ebionites. We're gonna go into this information. We're gonna go into the ascents of James, okay, which is the recognitions of Clement. We're going to go into the sense of James, and we're going to touch on how the Messiah did prophesy this according to the Jewish Christians. All right, so now, but this Mark is stemming from the Jewish Christian information. So scholars and people want to say, did Jesus really prophesy about the destruction? According to Jewish Christian records, people who say they are Jewish Christians, who say they are Ebionites, we do have some of their records. According to them, they actually say that the Messiah prophesied of this. But it's a whole nother kicker to it that's not being explained in the Greco-Roman sources. All right, so he prophesied that this is going to happen. Keep going, bro. Go to verse 3. Keep going.
Verse 3. And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives over against the temple, Peter and James and John and Andrew asked him privately, tell us, what shall these things be? When shall these things be? And what shall be the sign when all these things shall be fulfilled?
So you got his disciples, these are considered Ebionites. Okay, these are considered Nazarenes, these people right here. And Ebionites we just poor. But back then, and this time, during the time that we were reading this supposed to be taking place, that the word Ebionite wasn't it was an honorable word to be called, because you're not poor, you're poor because you choose to live for God. That was an honorable, name back then, but until later it got switched into being a derogatory name. But initially the name Ebionite was an honor. You're living for God, you know what I'm saying? You don't want for nothing. You're living for the Most High. It was an honorable thing to be called an Ebionite. All right, so now the disciples of the Messiah is asking them this. When should these things take place? Keep going, bro. And he gonna go into, and these things actually, it goes perfectly when you understand the Ebionites Nazarene, when you understand their plight. It lines up perfectly. Keep reading, bro.
Verse 5. And Yasha answering them began to say, take heed lest any man deceive you. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many.
What is that? You got many different fractions of this Christology started to create at the end of the first century, going into the second century. In the mid-second century, you had different understandings of the Messiah from outside of the Jewish Christian understanding. Okay, keep going, bro.
Sorry. Verse 7. And when ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars, be ye not troubled, for such things must needs be, but the end shall not be yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be earthquakes in diverse places, and there shall be famines and troubles, These are the beginnings of sorrows.
And these things happen, famines, and it was a famine that was recorded that we see. It was recorded in this Greco version of Acts. It was a famine recorded. A prophet came and told them about a famine, and you can see this same famine. It's famines recorded in Josephus around certain times, around these times. Famines recorded is taking place. You got, wars. When we talk about wars, let's talk about what's going on within Jerusalem. It was really going down in Jerusalem, especially when the Jews revolted. When they revolted in 66, it went down. All right. But he telling, don't be troubled when you see these things start taking place. Don't be troubled. Keep going, bro.
All right, we are at verse 9. It says, but take heed to yourselves, for they shall deliver you up to councils, and in the synagogues ye shall be beaten, and ye shall be brought before rulers and kings for my sake, for a testimony against them.
And this is what was happening because the Jewish Christians and the Jews, they used to actually be in the synagogues together at a point in time. But then they started having, we're going to read about it. They started having beef with each other. All right. And eventually, the Christians was the one, the Jewish Christians was the ones catching the most flack, catching the most, issues, because they can't go to the Romans. They can't go to the Jews. Their own people don't like them. The Romans don't like. So they was catching the most persecution. All right, even by their own. It's read in the Talmud. It speaks about how in the Manisha, it speaks about how that one of the prayers of the rabbis was saying, curse the Nazarenes, curse the Nazarenes, curse the Nazarenes this time of the day, curse the Nazarenes during this time of the day. So these people was being persecuted, and not just by Jews and by the Romans, but even by the Gentile Christian world also. We keep going, bro. Verse 10.
And the gospel must first be published among all nations.
So this got to happen because the gospel had to go out to the Gentiles, had to take the gospel. They had to take the gospel. We're going to read about that. We're going to read about that because all this is dealing with the flight to Pella. All this is dealing with why the church had to flee, because the the Gentile Christians had to take the gospel and put it out their way. All right. And put it out their way. Why? Why this had to happen? This had to happen because this is part of what you read when it comes to the signs of that coming. All right, of the signs of things taking place. So now we have the understanding now in today's time that, okay, the gospel had to get corrupted and go out to the Gentiles, and they had to take it and corrupt it so it can go out the way it had to go out. So now at the end time, we'll be able to preach the gospel the correct way, the correct Ebionite Nazarene way, the correct way. We'll be able to preach that the correct way. All right, so now.
Hey, I just wanted to say something too, if you don't mind, because I know some people like to make the argument when it comes to Matthew chapter 13. What was that, Mark or Matthew? My bad.
That's Mark.
Yeah, Mark chapter 13 and Matthew, I think it's chapter 24. The signs of thy comings and things like that. A lot of people like to say that's the end time, and then other people like to argue and say, no, that happened in first century, right? But sometimes scriptures and whole chapters are manifold, meaning they have two meanings, or meaning it can apply to more than one time era. So a lot of things that we see going on today that fit Mark chapter 13, it also happened in some aspect in the first century also.
Yeah, no, definitely. It happened to the church. It happened to the Ebionites. It happened to them. Let's go to let's read in the recognitions of Clement, which is with the sense of James, another name for, or the Acts of the Nazarenes. Can you read book 1, chapter 64? Can you read that for me?
Thus indeed we know that he is increasingly angry on account of your sacrificing after the completion of the time of sacrifices. Wherefore, even this temple shall be broken down, and they shall set upon the abomination of desolation in the holy place. Thereupon the gospel shall be established for the Gentiles as a testimony, for the sake of healing the divisions that the divisions that exist, so that it shall even be your surrendering. My bad, sundering. It says, indeed, while the entire world in generations upon generations was weakened by the evil inclination, either secretly or openly, there was, however, a physician as much as needed for the work of its healing.
Hold on right there. We're gonna come back. We're gonna come back to this. We're gonna come back to it. We're gonna leave out right here. We're gonna come back. It's gonna be part 2. We're gonna finish this off. But this is important what we read, and we're gonna come back and we're gonna read it because what it's saying, and we're gonna add it on with some extra precepts with it. But let's come back to it. We're gonna come back.